Hello. Hi, hi. So, as I sent in the Discord, today will be a lot different. Also, hi Lishi, hi Ivan, hi Alex. Hope you guys are having a good day and appreciate you guys for showing up today. Uh, I'm a little nervous because I'm not the best for reading in general. I love reading, but I'm worried that I'm going to screw something up or, say the wrong words or something, and ruin it all because uh, Autumn's bullied me a bit when it comes to reading, so I'm now a little subconscious about my reading. I'm like, oh, I now realize I say words, but it's not what's on screen. Um, so yeah, we're gonna try our best with this. So forgive me again, first time. I don't really have a background for this. I guess I could just show my desktop, but I don't really want to do that. So, uh, yeah, you could read a totally different book and we'll never know. Just take your time and have fun. Thank you. I appreciate it. Also, due to Ivan's tips, I have turned off a lot of the redeems, so only like a few sound based ones. It's okay, kiddo. I verbally input words that are there when I read. Gag. You won't ruin it, as we're here to support you and do your best. You will improve as you do it more. I appreciate it. Thank you. That actually like helps a lot more than you know. But yeah, so today we'll be reading the Metro 2033 book by Dmitry Glukhovsky. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And I've read a little bit of it because I didn't think I'd actually do this type of thing. So far I am already roped into it, and the first chapter is about, hold on, let me get the pages, about 24 pages until the next chapter. The next chapter is on the 24th. So yeah, I will try my best. Keto, I stumble on words all the time. I have faith in you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, so I did turn off the redeems thanks to Ivan mentioning. Uh, which honestly, great idea. Perfect. Fucking brilliant. So there's a few redeems there, like the head pat one, but sadly, it's got to be a little fucky. It's because I had to move the PNG tuber because I don't want just there being small Geeko there. Anyway, so let's begin. Chapter 1: The End of the Earth. Who's there, Artyom? Go have a look. Artyom rose reluctantly from his seat by the fire and shifting the machine gun from his back to his chest, heads towards the darkness. He stood right at the edge of the lighted area, and then, as loudly and threatening as he could, he clicked the side of his gun and shouted gruffly, "Stop! Password!" He could hear quick, scat staccato footsteps in the darkness, where moments ago he had heard a strange rustle and howling sounds, sounding murmurs. Someone was retreating into the depths of the tunnel, frightened away by Artyom's gruff voice and the rattling of his weapon. Artyom hurriedly returned to the fire and flung an answer at Pyotr Androvich. Nope, no one came forward. No response. They just ran off. You idiot! You were clearly told if they don't respond, then you shoot immediately. How do you know who that was? Maybe the Dark Ones are getting closer. No, I don't think they're people. The sounds were really strange, and the footsteps weren't human either. What? You think I don't know what a human footstep sounds like? And anyway, when have the Dark Ones ever run off like that? You know it yourself, Pyotr. Lately, they've been lunging forward without hesitation. They attack a patrol with nothing but their bare hands, marching straight into machine gun fire. But this thing, it ran off straight away, like some kind of scared animal. All right, Artyom, you're too smart for your own good, but you've got instructions, so follow them. Don't think about it. Maybe it was a scout, and now it knows how few of us are here, and how much ammunition they need. They might just wipe us out here and now for fun, put a knife to our throat, and butcher the entire station. Just like Polhevskaya, and all just because you didn't get rid of that rat. Watch it. Next time, I'll make you run after them into the tunnel. Hi, Olivia. Welcome on in. I hope you're having a good day. We've only just started, don't worry. It made Artyom shudder to imagine the tunnel beyond the 700th meter. It was horrifying just to think about it. No one had the guts to go beyond the 700th meter to the north. Patrols had made it to 500th, and having illuminated the boundary post with the spotlight on the trolley and convinced themselves that no scum had crossed it, they hastily returned. Even the scouts, big guys, full Marines, would stop at the 618th meter. They turned their burning cigarettes into their cupped palms and stand stock still, clinging to their night vision instruments, and then they'd slowly, quietly head back, without taking their eyes off the tunnel and never turning their backs to it. They were now on patrol at the 415th meter, 50 meters from the boundary post. The boundary was checked once a day, and today's inspection had been completed several hours ago. Now their post was the outermost, and since the last checked, the beast that the last patrol might have scared off would have certainly begun to crawl closer again. They were drawn to the flame, to people. Artyom settled back down into his seats and asked, "So, what actually happened at Polovaskaya?" Although he had already knew this blood-curdling story from the traders at the station, he had an urge to hear it again, like a child who feels an irrepressible urge to hear the scary stories about headless mutants and dark ones who kidnap young children. At Polovaskaya? What? You didn't hear about it? It was a strange story, strange and frightening. First, their scouts began disappearing, went off into the tunnels, and didn't come back. Granted, their scouts are completely green, nothing like ours. But then again, their station's smaller. A lot less people live there. Well, used to live there. So anyway, the scouts started disappearing. One detachment leaves and vanishes. At first, they thought something was holding them up at the tunnel, twists and turns just like it does here. Artyom felt ill at ease when he heard these words. And neither the patrols nor at their stations could see anything. No matter how much light they threw at it, no one appeared. For half an hour, then two. They wondered where the scouts could have gone. They were going only 1 kilometer in. They weren't allowed to go any further anyway. They weren't. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Lex. I appreciate it. Oh, 7 seam streak. Hell yeah. I do apologize in advance if I don't pay attention to chat because I'm looking down at the book, not looking towards my screen or anything. Oh, okay. They aren't total idiots. Long story short, they couldn't wait to find out. They sent reinforcements who searched and searched and shouted, but it was all in vain. The patrol was gone. The scouts had vanished, and it wasn't just that wasn't just that that no one had seen what had happened to them. The worst part was that they hadn't heard sound, not a sound. Thank you for the hydrate. I literally just took a swig, but I'll take another. Okay. And shouted, but it was all in vain. The patrol was gone. No sound. There was no trace of them whatsoever. Artyom was already beginning to regret that he had asked Pyotr Ardovich to recount the story of Polovaskaya. Pyotr Arovich was either better informed or was embezzling the story somewhat. But in any case, he was telling details of a sort that the traders couldn't have dreamed, despite being masters and true enthusiasts of storytelling. Hi, Nana. Thank you for the head pat. Hope you're doing good. Uh, oh, I lost my track. Hold on. Couldn't have dreamed, despite being masters of true enthusiast storytelling, the story's details sent a chill over Artyom's skin, and he became uncomfortable, even sitting next to the fire. Any rustling from the tunnel, even the most innocent, were now exciting his imagination. So, there you have it. They hadn't heard any gunfire, so they decided that the scouts had simply left. Maybe they just you're doing amazing. Thank you. Doing amazing after I bumble that up. Maybe they were dissatisfied with something. They had decided to run, so to hell with them. If it's any easy life they want, if they want to run around with all that kinds of riffraff, then let them run around to their heart's content. It's simpler to see it that way, easier. But a week later, yet another scout team disappeared, and they weren't supposed to go any further than half a kilometer from the station. And again, the same old story. Not a sound, not a trace. Likely they'd vanished into the thin air. So then they started getting worried back at the station. Now they had a real mess on their hands. 2 squadrons had disappeared within a week. They've have to do something about it, meaning they'd have to take measures. Well, they set up a cordon at the 300th meter. They dragged sandbags on the cordon, set up machine guns and a spotlight. According to the rules of fortification, they sent a runner to Begovaya. They had established a confederation with Begovaya and 1905 Street. Initially, Oktoberfield had also been included, but then something had happened. No one knows exactly what. Some kind of accident, conditions there had been some accident, conditions there had become unlivable, and everyone had fled. Anyway, they sent a runner to Begovaya to warn them that they had, as they said, trouble was afoot, and to ask for help. Should anything happen, the first runner had only made it to Begovaya, and the people there were still considering their answer. When a second runner arrived at Begovaya, lathered in sweat, and had said reinforced the cordon had perished to a man without firing a single shot. Every last one of them. Just saying hi, get and chill and listen. Hi, kitty. It's been a bit. Hope you're doing good. Perished to a man. Every last one of them had been slaughtered, and it was as if they had been butchered in their sleep. That's what was scary. But they wouldn't have fallen asleep, not after the scare they had. Not to mention the orders and instructions at this point. The people at Bogovaya understood that if they did nothing, the same story would begin in their neck of the woods as well. They equipped a strike force of veterans, about 100 men, machine guns, and grenade launchers. Of course, that all took a bit of time, about a day and a half, but all the same. They dispatched the group to go help, and when the group entered Polskavaya, Polzhevskaya, sorry, there weren't a living soul to have been seen. There weren't even bodies, just blood everywhere. There you go. And who knows who the hell did it? I, for one, don't believe that humans are capable of such a thing. What happened to Bogovaya? Artyom's voice sounded unusual, unlike him. Nothing happened to them. They saw what the deal was and exploded the tunnel that led to Polskaya. I hear 40 meters worth of tunnel has collapsed. There's no digging through it without special machinery. And even with machinery, I bet you wouldn't get very far. And where are you going to find that kind of machinery? Anyway, our machinery rotted away 15 years ago already. Pyotr Adovich fell silent, gazing into the fire. Artyom gave a loud cough and said, "Yeah, I should have shot that thing, of course. Well, I was an idiot. A shout came from the south, from the direction of the station. Hey there! At the 400th meter. Everything okay there? Pyotr Arovich folded his hands into the shape of a megaphone and shouted in reply, Come closer! We've got a situation here! Three figures approached in the tunnel from the station, their flashlights shining, probably patrol members from the 300th meter, stepping into the light of the fire. They put out their flashlights and sat down. Hi there, Pyotr. So, it's you here. I'm thinking to myself, who'd they send off to the edge of the earth today? Said the senior patrolsman, smiling and shaking his cigarette from his pack. Listen, Andruka. One of my guys saw someone up here, but he didn't get to shoot. It hid in the tunnel. He says it didn't look human. Did it look human? What did it look like then? Andrei turned to Artyom. I didn't even see it. I just asked for the password, and it ran off, heading north. But the footsteps weren't human. They were light and very quick, as if it had 4 legs instead of 2. All three, winked at Andre, making a scary face. Artyom choked, remembering the stories about the 3-legged people from Fledvoskaya line, where some of the stations went up to the surface, and the tunnel didn't run very deep at all, so they had almost no protection from the radiation. There were 3-legged things, 2-headed things, and all kinds of weird shit crawling all over the metro from those parts. Andre took a drag from his cigarette and said to his men, Alright, guys, since we're already here, why don't we sit down for a while? If any 3-legged thing crawl up to these guys again, we'll lend a hand. Hey, Artyom, got a kettle? Pyotr Arovich got up and poured some water from a canister into a beat-up, soot-covered kettle and hung it over the flame. In a few minutes, a kettle began to whistle as it came to boil. The sound, so domestic and comforting, made Artyom feel warmer and calmer. He looked around at the men who were sitting at the fire, all of them strong, dependable people, hardened by the challenging life they lead here. You could trust men like these. You could count on them. The station always had the reputation for being the most successful along the entire line. And that was all thanks to the men gathered here, and to others like them. They were all connected to each other with warm, almost brotherly bonds. Artyom was just over 20 years old and had come into this world when life was still up there on the surface. He wasn't as thin and pale as the others who had been born in the metro. Who wouldn't dare go up to the surface for fear of radiation and the searing rays of the sun, which are so ruinous for underground dwellers. True, even Artyom, as far as he could remember, had been on the surface only once, and then it was only for a moment. The background radiation there had been so bad that anyone who got a bit too curious would have been completely fried within a couple of hours, before he'd even managed to enjoy a good stroll and see his fill of the bizarre world that lay on the surface. He didn't remember his father at all. His mother had been with him until he was 5 years old. They lived in Timarovskaya. Things had been good. The fucking dogs. And life had gone smoothly and peacefully until Timarovskaya fell victim to a rat infestation. Fuck you. Fucking phone. Give me one sec. I didn't realize I didn't put it on silent. There we go. Fuck you, you dick. Okay. One day, huge, grey, wet rats poured from one of the tunnels on the dark side of the station without any warning. It was a tunnel that plunged off to the side, a disregarded branch of the primary northern leg, which descended to great depths, only to become lost in the complex networks of hundreds of corridors, freezing, stinking labyrinths of horror, sorry. The tunnel stretched into the kingdom of rats, where even the most hopeless adventure wouldn't dare to go. Even a wanderer who was lost and couldn't find his way using underground maps of paths would stop at this threshold, sensing instinctively the black and sinister danger emerging from it, and would have rushed away from the grasping crevasse of that entrance, as though from the gates of the plague infested city. No one bothered the rats. No one descended into their domain. No one dared to violate their borders. Thank you for the hydrate. Mm, okay. I heard you clear your throat and make sure you're drinking water. You're doing amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. But the they came to the people. Many people perished that day when a living torrent of gigantic rats, bigger than had ever been seen at either the stations or in the tunnels, had flooded the cordons, yes, and the station, burying all of its defenders and its population, muffling their dying screams with the mass of its bodies, consuming everything in their path, the living, the dead, and their own fallen comrades. The rats tore ahead, further and further, blindingly and inexorable, propelled by a force beyond human comprehension. Only a few men remained alive, no women, no men, or children. None of the people who would normally have been saved first, but rather 5 healthy men who had managed to keep ahead of the death-wrecking torrent. And the only reason they'd outrun it was because they happened to be standing near a trolley on a watch in the southern tunnel. Hearing the shouts from the station, one of them sprinted to see what had happened. Timoverskaya was already perishing. When he caught sight of it, he entered the station. At the station's entrance, he understood what had happened from the first revival of rats seeping into the platform, and he was about to turn back, knowing that he couldn't possibly help those who were defending the station. Then suddenly, his hand was seized from behind. He turned around, and a woman, her face contorted with horror, pulling incessantly at his sleeve, shouted in an effort to overcome the many-voiced choir of despair. "Save him, soldier! Have mercy!" He saw that she was handing him a child's hand, a small, chubby hand, and he grabbed the hand without even thinking that he was saving someone's life, and pulling the child behind him, and picking him up and tucking him under his arm. Give me one sec. I'm hearing dog barking and it's really throwing me off. So I wanna quickly chuck my earbuds in. Apologies, but you know, rather do this with full focus than half-assed. Gotta love the dogs. I'm actually quite enjoying this so far. I'm enjoying the ability to read to you guys. It's quite interesting so far. All right. Let's see. And pulling the child behind him and picking him up and tucking him under his arm, he raced off with the front runner, with the front runner rats and raced with death forward through the tunnel, where the trolley was waiting his fellow patrolmen. He started to shout at them from afar, from a distance of 50 meters or so, telling them to start up the trolley. Their trolley was motorized, the only one of its kind in the surrounding 10 stations. It was only because of it they were able to outrun the rats. The patrolmen faced forward and flew through the abandoned station of Dmurtskaya, I think it is, at full speed, where a few hermits had sought shelter, just managing to tell them, "Run! Rats!" without realizing that there was no chance of the hermits saving themselves. As they approached the cordons of Slivolskaya, with whom, thank God, they had peaceful arrangements, They slowed down so they wouldn't be fired at. They would have been taken for raiders at such high speeds, and they shouted at the top of their lungs to the guards, "Rats! The rats are coming!" They prepared to keep running right through. Oh, wait, he's still talking. Sorry. They were prepared to keep running right through Slevelskaya and further along the line, prepared to beg to be lit through as. Fuck me. I missed the little dots. Hold on. This is why I read way too quickly. Where did he say? Rats. Oh, okay, it stopped there. They were prepared to keep running right through Slivolskaya and further along the line, prepared to beg to be let through, as long as there was somewhere further to go, as long as the grey lava had inundated the entire metro. Thank you. Listening to you read is fun. Me too. You're doing really good. Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. Maybe I might do this more often. I mean, we have a whole book to go through, right? So it's gonna take us a long while. So, I wouldn't mind after finishing Metro 2033 that I pick up the other book and see if if you guys really do enjoy it, I will continue reading those ones next. Let's see. Let's see. But luckily, there was something at Slevolskaya that would save them. The station, and perhaps the entire Supukovskaya Timurskaya branch. They were nearly at the station, soaked in sweat, shouting at the Slavoska guards about their narrow escape from death. Meanwhile, the guards at the post were quickly pulling the cover off some kind of impressive-looking piece of kit. It was a flamethrower, assembled by the local craftsmen from spare parts, homemade but incredibly powerful. When the first ranks of the rats became visible, gathering force, and you could hear the rustling and scratching of thousands of rat paws from the darkness. The guards fired up the flamethrower, and they didn't turn it off until the fuel was spent. A howling orange flame filled the tunnel of tens of meters and burned the rats, burned them all without stopping for 10, 15, 20 minutes. The tunnel was filled with repulsive stench of burnt flesh and wild screeching of rat, and behind the guards of Silverskaya, who had become heroes and had earned fame along the entire metro, the trolley came to a stop, cooling down. On it was 5 men who had fled from Tverskaya station, and there was one more, the child they had saved, a boy, Artyom. Weekly story time, hell yeah. The rats retreated, their blind will had broken by one of the last inventions of humanity, a military genius. Humans had always been better at killing than any other living thing. The rats flowed backwards and returned to their enormous kingdom, whose true dimensions were unknown to no one. Were known to no one. All of these labyrinths laying at incredible depths were so mysterious, and it was seemed completely useless for the functioning of the metro. It was hard to believe, despite the assurances of various persons of authority on the matter, that all this was built by ordinary metro builders. One such person of authority had once worked as a conductor's assistant on an electric train in the old days. There were hardly any of this kind left, and were Jesus Christ, were greatly valued. I missed it. Where'd it go? Because at first they had proven to be only ones who could find their way around, and they didn't give in to fear the moment they found themselves outside the comfortable and safe capsules of the train. In the dark tunnels of Moscow Metro, in the stone bowels of the great metropolis, everyone at the station treated the conductor's assistant with respect, and taught their children to do the same. It was for that reason, probably, that Artyom had remembered him all his life, a thin, haggard man, Emas- emancipated by the long years of work underground who wore a threadbare and faded metro employee uniform that had long ago lost its chic, but that he donned with the same pride a retired admiral would feel when putting on a parade uniform. Even Artyom, still just a kid at the time, had seen a certain dignity and power in the sickly figure of the conductor's assistant. Of course he did. For all those who survived, the employees of the metro were like local guides to scientific expeditions in the jungles. They were religiously believed they were depended upon completely, and the survival of everyone else depended on their knowledge and skill. Many of them became the heads of stations when when united system of the government disintegrated, and the metro was transformed from a couple for a complex object of civil defense, a huge fallout shelter, and a multitude of stations unconnected by a single power, and was plunged into chaos and anarchy. The station became independent and self-sufficient, distinctive dwarf status states with their own ideologies and regimes, their own leaders and armies. They warred against each other, they joined to form federations and confederations. They became metropolitan centers of rising empire one day, only to be subjugated and colonized the next day by their erstwhile friends or their slaves. Sorry about that. Mum was talking to me. They formed short term unions against a common threat, only to fall at each other's throats again with renewed energy, and the moment that the threat had passed, they scrapped over everything with total abandon. Over living spaces, over food, over the plantings of the albinuminescent yeast. Ew. The crops of mushrooms that didn't require any sunlight, the chicken coops, the pig farms, while pale subterranean pigs and emaciated chicks were raised on colorless underground mushrooms. They fought, of course, over water, that is, over filters, barbarians who don't know how to repair filtration systems that had fallen into disuse and were dying from water that was poisoned by radiation, threw themselves with animal rage upon the bastions of civilized life. Ugh. You're doing great. Thank you. Appreciate it. For some reason, my chest is hurting. I don't know if that's due to anxiety or something else, but either way, I'm enjoying this. Da, 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 da. Bastions of civilized life. At the station where the daimyo machines and small homemade hydroelectric stations functioned correctly, where filters were repaired and cleaned regularly, where tended by the caring female hands and damped grounds was punctured with the little white caps of pigeons? Weird. And well-fed pigs grunted in their pens. They were driven forward in the endless and desperate onslaught by an instinct of self-preservation, and by that internal revolutionary principle, conquer and divide. The defenders of the successful stations, organized into battle ready divisions by former military professionals, stood up to the assault of vandals to the very last drop of their blood. And they went on to launch counterattacks and won back every meter of the interstation tunnels with a fight. The station amassed with their military power in order to answer any incursions with punctive expeditions, in order to push their civilized neighbors from territory that was important for sustaining life. If they hadn't managed to attain these agreements by peaceful means, and in order to offer resistance to the crap that was climbing out of every hole and tunnel, these were strange, freakish, and dangerous creatures, the likes of which might have brought Darwin himself to despair, with their obvious lack of conformity to the laws of evolutionary development. Thank you for the hydrate. That's all the water I got. Alright. Alright. Sorry, I'm cracking my bones. Alright. Da, da, da. These strange, freakish, and dangerous creatures, Darwin lives like of to the laws of the evolutionary development. As much as these beasts might differ from animals humans were used to, and whether they had been reborn under the invisible and ruinous rays of sunlight, turned from inoffensive representations of urban fauna into the spawn of hell, or whether they had always dwelled in the depths, only now to be disturbed by man, still, they were an evident part of life on Earth, disfigured, perverted, but a part of life here all the same. And they remain subject to that very same driving impulse known to every organic thing on this planet: survive. Survive at any cost. Artyom accepted a white enameled cup in which some of their homemade station tea was splashing around. Of course, it wasn't really tea at all, but an infusion of dried mushrooms and other additives. Real tea was a rarity. They rationed it and drank it only on major holidays and fetched a price dozens of times higher than the price of mushroom infusions. Nevertheless, they liked their own station brew and were even proud enough of it to call it tea. It's true that strangers would spit it out at first, since they aren't used to the taste, but soon they got used to it, and the fame of their tea spread beyond the bounds of their station. And even the traders came to get it, one by one, risking life and limb, and soon after their team made it down the whole metro line, even Hans Hanseatic League had started to become invested in it, and great caravans of magical infusion rolls towards VDNKH cash started to flow, and whatever there hold on. Ugh, my eyes are going all over the place. Hold on. Wherever there was money, there were weapons, there were firewood, and there were vitamins, and there was life. Ever since they started making the very same tea at VDNKH, the station had begun to grow strong. People from nearby stations moved to the station, and stretches of track were laid out to the station. Prosperity had come, and they were also very proud of their pigs at VDNKH. And the legend had it that it was previously from this station that the pigs had entered the metro, back at the very beginning of things, when certain daredevils had made their way to the pig breeding pavilion at exhibition and managed to herd the animals back down the station. Listen, Artyom, how are things going with Sukho? Sukhoi? Asked Andre, drinking his tea with small, cautious sips and blowing on it carefully. With Uncle Sasha? Everything's fine. He came back a little while ago from a hike down the line with some of our people. An expedition, as you know. Andre was about 15 years older than Artyom. Generally speaking, he was a scout, and rarely stood at a watch near than 450 meter, and then only as a cordon commander. They posted him at a 300th meter with good cover, but all the same, He felt the urge to head deeper and made use of any pretext, any false alarm to get closer to the darkness, closer to the secret. He loved the tunnel and the dark knew its branches very well, but the station, he felt uncomfortable among the farmers and the workers, the businessmen, and the administration. He felt unneeded. Perhaps he couldn't bring himself to hoe the earth full of mushrooms, or even worse, stuff the fat pigs at the stations with farms with mushrooms. Standing up to his knees in a manner, and he couldn't be a traitor either. He'd been unable to stand from traitors the day he was born. He had always been a soldier, a warrior, and believed with all his soul that this was the only occupation worthy of a man. He was proud that he had done nothing his entire life but defend the stinking farmers, the fussy traders, the administrators, who were businesslike to a fault, and the women and children. Women were attracted to his arrogant strength, to his total confidence in himself, to his sense of calm in relation to himself and those around him, because he was always capable of defending them. Women promised him love, they promised him comfort, but he could only feel comfortable beyond the 15-meter, beyond the turning point where the station's lights were hidden, and the women didn't follow him. Oh, wait. Yep, no, I'm fine. I got it right. Thank you for the hair pats. Alright, the dogs have started to stop barking, so I'm going to take my earbuds out. Okay. Uh, why not? Now he warmed up nicely as a result of the tea, and he removed his old black beret and wiped his mustache, damp from the steam, with his sleeve. Then he began to question Artyom eagerly for news and rumors from the south, brought by the last expedition by Artyom's stepfather, by the very man whose 19 years ago had torn Artyom from the rats at Temovskaya, unable to abandon a child, and had raised him. I myself might know a thing or two, but I'll listen with pleasure, even for a second time. What, do you mind? Insisted Andre. He didn't have to spend any time persuading him. Artyom himself enjoyed recalling the retelling of his stepfather's stories. After all, everyone would listen to them, with their mouths agape. Well, you know where they went, began Artyom. I know that they went south. They're so top secret, those hikers of yours, laughed Andre. They're special missions of the administration. You know. He winked at one of his people. Come on. There wasn't anything secret about it. Artyom waved his hand dismissively. The expedition was more for reconnaissance, the collection of information, reliable information. Because you can't believe strangers, the traders who waged their tongues at us at the station. They could be traitors or could be provocators spreading misinformation. You can never trust traitors, grumbled Andre. They're out for their own good. How are you supposed to know whether to trust one? One day, he'll sell your tea to Hunter, and the next, he'll sell your entrails to someone else. You may well be collecting information here among us. To be honest, I don't particularly trust ours either. Page 12. Damn. Dragon! Hi, Jaw! How are you? Ooh, we're just reading some book. Ooh. My power keeps going out still. Oh no. Has it been the weather? Sorry, I'm just clicking my fingers. I'm sorry, I just got my power back the other day. I know you're paying. Yeah, no, Ivan's been losing his power, lost his power all week last week. That storm last week messed everything up really bad. Aww. I hope things get sorted soon, bud. Next page. Well, you're wrong to go after our own Andrei Ikovich. The guys are all okay. I know almost all of them myself. They're people, just like people anywhere. They love money too. They want to live better than others do. They're striving towards something, said Artyom, attempting to defend the local traders. There it is. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They love money. They want to live better than anyone else does. And who knows what they can do when they go off into the tunnel. Can you tell me with certainty that it is not the very next station they aren't recruited by agents? Can you? Or not? Which agents? Whose agents did our traders submit to? Here's what I'll say, Artyom. You're still young. There's a lot you don't know. You should listen to your elders, pay attention, and you'll stick around a bit longer. Uh, Someone has to do their work. If it weren't for the traders, we'd be sitting here without military supplies, with Beridan rifles, and we'd be tossing salt at the Dark Ones and drinking our tea, said Artyom, not backing down. All right. We've got an economist in our midst. Simmer down. You do better to tell us what Urka saw there. What's going on there with the neighbors at Oliverskaya, at Rizskaya? Oliverskaya? Nothing new. They're growing mushrooms and what else is Oliverskaya anyway? A farmyard, that's all. So they say. Then Artyom lowered his voice in the light, and scarcely of the information he was about to give. They want to join us, and Riverside isn't against it either. They're facing growing pressure over there from the south. There's a somber mood. Everyone's whispering about some sort of threat. Everyone's afraid of something. But of what? Nobody knows. It's either that there's some sort of new empire at the far end of the line, or that they're afraid of Hansa, thinking they might want to expand, or something else altogether. All those barnyards are starting to cuddle up to us, Vrezovskaya and Alverskaya both. But what do they want? In concrete teams? In concrete teams? Frick me. Uh, Concrete terms. Jesus. What are they offering? Asked Andre. They want to create a federation with us that has a common defense system to strengthen the borders on both ends, to establish constant illumination inside the interstation tunnels, to organize a police force, to plug up the side of tunnels and corridors, to launch transport trolleys, to lay telephone cables, to designate any available space for mushroom growing. Give me 1 sec. My throat's starting to hurt a little bit, so I'm gonna go quickly grab some water. I'll be right back. Sip, sip, sip. On that note, everyone please remember to hydrate. Agreed. That one's for everyone. Hell yeah. Everyone hydrate. Especially you, Lishi. If you're able to. Oh, that feels a lot better. I'm staying drowned. Hell yeah. Okay. They want a common economy to work and to help each other. Should it prove necessary. And where we we where we fuck me. They put where and where together. Hold on, I'll type it in chat. Coffee counts. Honestly, fair. They put this and this together. I'm like, wait, is that's right in sentences, right? Like you can use those two together. Oh, pardon me. Sorry. Yes, they can go together. Okay, cool. I I can't remember what they both sound like. Where were? Okay. And where were they when we needed them? Ah, I got it. Ah. Okay, where were you? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, now I get it. Now I get it. Ah, brilliant. Thank you guys. And where were they when we needed them? Where were they when they was vermin crawling at us from botanical gardens from Medvedkov when the Dark Ones were attacking us? Where were they? Growled Andre. Don't jinx us, Andre. Be careful. Intercepted interceded Pyotr Ardovich. There aren't any Dark Ones here for the time being, and all's well. It wasn't us who defended them. Something happened that was their own doing, and it was something among themselves, and now they've quietened down. They might have been saving up their strength for now. So, a union won't hurt us, all the more so. If we unify with our neighbors, it'll be to their benefit and for our own good as well. And we'll have freedom and equality and brotherhood, said Andre, unironically counting on his fingertips. What, you don't want to listen? Asked Artyom, offended. No, go ahead, Artyom, continue, said Andre. We'll have it out with Pyotr later. This is the long-standing argument between us. All right, then. And as they say that their chief supposedly agrees, doesn't have any fundamental objections. It's just necessary to consider the details. Soon, there'll be there'll be an assembly, and then a referendum. What do you mean a referendum? If the people say yes, then it's a yes. If they say no, then the people didn't think hard enough. Let the people think again, quipped Andre. Well, Artyom, what's going on beyond Rizskaya? Fucking dogs. God damn it. I'm not allowed damn peace and quiet yet. Which, funny enough, I haven't told chat this, but essentially, uh, soon, maybe next week, depending on when we can get search sorted, I'll be moving over to the other house. So essentially, my aunt wants to swap houses with me, so I'll be over at her house all by myself, and she'll be over here where I'm at with my mum. So essentially, we have two properties on this. Sorry, two houses on this property, and my aunt lives in one. Me and my mum live in this one. So yeah, I'll be living by myself, thankfully. No more dogs barking. No more disruptions. Just me. Ooh, you'll have some quiet. Yes, that sounds great. Yeah. You want to live with me, Ivan? Cool. Thank you. All right. We're gonna keep going till ads start, and then when ads start, we'll have a little bit of a break. I don't want to, continue off without anyone else. because I feel rude if I did. Okay. What's going on at Verskaya? Asked Pyotr Arovich, not paying attention to Andre. What's next? Prospect Mir Station? Well, and it makes sense that it's Prospect Mir. That's the boundary of Hansa-Steck League. My stepfather says that everything's still the same between Hansa and the Reds. They've kept the peace. No one there gives a thought to to war anymore, said Artyom. The Hanseatic League was the name of the concord of ring line stations. These stations are located at the intersection of all the other lines, and therefore all of the trade routes. The lines are linked to linked to one another by tunnels, which became a meeting place for businessmen from all over the metro. These businessmen grew rich with a fantastic speed, and soon, knowing that their wealth were arousing the envy of too many, they decided to join forces. The official name was unwieldy, though. Among the people, Concord was nicknamed Hansa. Someone had once accurately compared them to a union of trade cities of in medieval Germany. Okay, I must look. Take care of the dog. Doing amazing so far. Keep it up. Thank you, Lex. I appreciate it. All right, take a break. Get some water. Get something to eat and drink. We'll still be here. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. I still have a little bit of a pain in my chest, but honestly, so far I'm enjoying it. Huh, big book. Big book. You're doing so good. See? Nervous for no reason. Fuck you, I can still be nervous. I like being nervous sometimes. Okay, that's a lie. I don't like being nervous. But I'm glad that I can offer something chill for people for once, you know? Because let's be fair here. Chill time is best time. You're so cute when you're nervous. Fuck you! I'm not cute. Me. I toughly enjoy hearing you read, Kat, especially since I skipped my usual reading stream this week. Bitch, you're adorable. I was about to say, bitch, I'm adorable, but then you said that. See, I told you you'd be fine. Proud of you, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's still a nervous thing to go through because you know I'm not the best at reading. I'm good at reading small paragraphs when taking breaks. Reading to myself, I'm pretty good at. You know what I thought of for a cool background I could have? I'd like to imagine Kiko's in like a metro tunnel with a campfire reading a book. You know what I mean? I think that would be really cool. Maybe one of these days I can like pay for an artist to make something like that for like a new chatting screen or starting soon thing, you know? Thank you for the head pats. Hi Havoc. Also welcome back chat. We're about to start soon. How's your day going, Havoc? You doing all right? All right. Let me move my mouse over here. All right. I want to see Ivan in all of the universes. I was gonna say, Ivan, you're already in Kiko's universe. Like Ivan and Kiko, or your character and Kiko, they're already good friends. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, let's go! All right. The short word was catchy, and it stuck. At the beginning, the Hansa consisted of only a few stations. The Concorde only came together gradually, the part of the Ringkurviska to Prospect Mir, what's called the Northern Arc, and that included Kurvskaya, Tangvaskaya, and Otovaskaya. Then Pavelskaya and Dobnirskaya joined in and formed another arc, the Southern Arc. But the biggest problem and the biggest hindrance to uniting the Northern and Southern arcs was Skull Line. The thing was, Artyom's stepfather told him that Skull Line was always a sort of special. When you first glance at the map, your attention is immediately drawn to it. First of all, it's a straight line, straight as an arrow. Secondly, it was marked in bright red on metro maps, and its station names contributed too. Sorry, I looked up a chat. Uh, Chrono Krans Kranoslaskaya, Kransvota, Komoslovskaya, Biblioteka Ima Imina Lemina. God, I'm butchering this. And Lins Lini fuck Liniski Gori. And whether it was because of these names or because of something else, the line would draw to itself everyone who is nostalgic for the glorious Soviet past. The idea of a resurrection of the Soviet state took easily there. Uh, at first, just one station returned to the communist ideals and a socialist form of rule, and then one next to it. The people from the tunnel of the other side caught wind of this optimistic revelation and chucked out their administration, and so on and so on. The veterans who were still alive, former Komsomol men and party officials, permanent members of fucking hell. Oh, I need to reread this because I feel like I'm skipping words. Okay. Permanent members of Proletarita that all came together at the revolutionary stations. They founded a community responsible for the demonstration of this new revolution and its communist idea throughout the metro system under the almost linear name of interstational. It prepared divisions of professional revolutionaries and propagandists and set them to enemy stations in general. Little blood was spilt. Spilt since the starving inhibition of skull lines were thirsting for the restoration of justice, for which, as far as they could have understood, apart from unjust egalitarianism, there was no other option. So, the whole branch, having fled up at one end, was soon engulfed by the crimson flames of revolution. The stations returned to their old Soviet names. Oh Jesus Christ! Here we go. Chespyode became Korvolskaya again. Lubyanka became Devinskaya. Okhotny Ride became Prospect Marks. The stations were natural names were renamed with something more ideological clear. Sportanovaya became Kommunistskaya. Solniki became Stalinskaya. Pre-Orbov... Oh, fuck me. Pre-Orvasnaskaya Polish... Fucking, that scared me. Lord, what a wonderful word ruined. Why, what's up? Also, hi, Canum. Where it all began, became Zanuan Resolution. The line itself, once Skull, was now called by the most red line. Fucking hell. So, if once Skull was now called by most of the red line, it was usual in the old days for Moscovits to call their metro line by the colors on the map. Anyway, but now the line was officially called the Red Line. But it didn't go any further. When the Red Line had formed itself and had ideas about spreading itself through the metro, patience quickly wore thin at other stations. Too many people remembered the Soviet era. Too many people saw the agitators that they were sent by the international throughout the metro as tumor as a tumor that was metatizing, threatening to kill the whole organism. It is a quote from the game. Some old moon say it. Don't remember his name or where he is. Hell yeah. Hope your day's going good, Canum. And as much as the agitators and propagandists promised electricity for the whole metro, that by joining with the Soviet powers, they would experience real communism, it was unlikely that this had come from any natural slogan of Lenin's. It was so exploitive. People beyond their boundaries weren't tempted. The international sloganeers were caught and thrown back to Soviet territory. Then the Red leadership decided that it was time to act more resolutely. If the rest of the metro wouldn't take up the Neri Revolution flame, then they needed to be lit from underneath. Neighboring stations, worried about the strengthening communist propaganda, also came to the same conclusion. His historical experience demonstrates well that there isn't a better way of injecting communist Bekili into the area than with a bayonet. And the hundreds thunder rumbled. Fucking hell. Okay. Thank you, Lishi. Metro? I think you mean our Metro. Yeah, right. Okay. You know what I forgot to have? My pills! That might help. Or not, it could make me worse. We'll see. I reckon it'll do me good. It's somehow even warmer right now? Honestly, the weather's been weird. Did I take my pills? That's a good question. Did you? I know I haven't yet. Do you do your legally sanctioned drugs, both of you? I'm already doing it. Oh. See? Take it. Some of the water splashed back at my nose. Oh, it's not my glasses. No. Okay. Where was I? Let's see. The thunder rumbled. The coalition of anti-communist stations directed by the Hansa broke the red line, and wanting to close the ring circle, took up the call. The Reds, of course, didn't expect the organized resistance and overestimated their own strength. The easy victory had an anticipated couldn't even be seen in the distant future. The war turned out to be long and bloody, wearing on and on. Meanwhile, the population of the metro wasn't all that large. It went on for almost a year and a half, and mostly consisted of battles of positions involving guerrilla excursions and diversions, and barricading of tunnels, the execution of prisoners, and several other atrocities committed by either side. All sorts of things happened. Army operations, encirclement, the breaking of encirclement, various feats. There were commanders, heroes, traitors. But the main feature of this war was that neither of the belligerent parties could shift the front line any considerable distance. Mm. Hello, welcome on in. How are you doing today, Lily? Oh, okay. Uh, do, 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 do. Uh, Trade has been the main feature of belligerent parties shift from the considerable distance. Sometimes it seemed that that one side was gaining an edge, would take over an adjacent station, but the opponent resisted, mobilized additional forces, and the scales were tipped to the other side. But the war exhausted resources. The war eliminated the best people. The war was generally exhausting, and those that survived grew tired of it. The revolutionary government had subtly replaced the internal problems with more modest ones. In the beginning, they strove for the distribution of socialist power and communist ideas throughout the state underground, but now the Reds only wanted to have control over what they saw as the inner sanctum, the station called Revolutionary Square. Firstly, because of its name, and secondly, because it was closer than any other station in the metro to the Red Square and to Kremlin. I heard Kanan's voice say, "I'm crumbing." God dang it. Let's see. Kremlin, the towers of which were still adorned with ruby stars, if you believe the brave men who were so ideologically strong that they broke the surface just to look at them. But of the course, they're at the surface near Kremlin, right in the center of the Red Square, was the mausoleum. Whether Lenin's body was still there or not, no one knew, but that doesn't really matter. For many years of the Soviet era, the mausoleum had ceased to be a tomb and had become its own shrine, a sacred symbol of the continuity of power. I'm crumbing! God damn it. Great leaders of the past started their parades there. Current leaders aspire to it. Also, they say that from the offices of the Revolutionary Station, there are secret passages to the covert laboratories of the mausoleum, which lead directly to the coffin itself. The Reds still had prospect marks, formerly Okhotny Ride, which was fortified and had become a base from which attacks of the revolution Square were launched. More than one crusade was blessed by the revolutionary leadership and sent to liberate their station and its tomb. But its defenders also understood that the meaning it held for the Reds, and they stood to the last. Revolutionary Square had turned it into an unapproachable fortress. I need to have another drink. I feel like my pills are still in my throat. Okay. Sweet ass. Alrighty, alrighty. Where was I? Approachable Fortress. The most severe and bloody fights took place at the approach to the station. The biggest number of people was killed there. There were plenty of heroics, those that faced bullets with their chest, and brave men who tied grenades to themselves to blow themselves up together with an enemy artillery point, and those that used forbidden flamethrowers against people. Everything was in vain. They recaptured the station for a day, but didn't manage to fortify it. They were defeated, retreating the next day when the coalition came back with a counterattack. Exactly the same thing was happening at Limnan Library. That was the Reds' fort, and coalition forces repeatedly tried to seize it from them. And the station had huge strategic value because they could split the Red Line in two parts there, and they would have had a direct passage to the three other lines with which the Red Line doesn't intersect anywhere else. It was the only place. It was a lab. Hmm? Limefen. What the fuck is that word? I've never seen that word before. Hold on, let me look this up. This is confusing me. Lympphand. What does that mean? Lymph gland? Lymph gland. I don't know. Never heard that word before. I'll spell it out. Yeah, I'm gonna spell it out in chat. Lympphand. That is what that's spelled. I'm looking at that and I'm like, what the fuck is that word? I've never seen that word before. Lymph. Lymph gland. Maybe it's something the writer made up, or maybe it was a mistranslation or something. I got no idea. Let's see. It was like a lymph gland infected with the red plague, which would then be spread across the whole organism. And to prevent this, they had to take the linen library and had to take it at any cost. But as unsuccessful as the Reds' attempts were to take Revolutionary Square, the efforts of the coalition to squeeze them out of the linen library were equally fruitless. Lymph node, it helps your immune system. They're in your neck, homie. Oh. Hi, Adam. They're also called lymph nodes. It's part of the immune system. Oh, like a lymph node. It's in the neck. I like how everyone's like, yep, in the neck, in the neck. It's part of your immune system. Lumi calls them slip knots. Brilliant. Hi, Anna. How you? Hope you're having a good day. All right. Uh, squeeze them out. Meanwhile, people. Let's see. fruitless. Meanwhile, people were tiring of this fight. Desertion was already rife, and there were incidents of fraternization when soldiers from both sides laid down their arms upon confrontation. But unlike the First World War, the Reds didn't gain an advantage. Their revolutionary fuse fizzled out quietly. The coalition didn't fare much better. Dissatisfied with the fact that they had to consistently tremble for their lives, people picked themselves up and went off in a whole family groups from the central stations to the outer stations. The Hansa emptied and weakened. War had badly affected trade. Traders found other ways around the system, and the important trading routes because empty and what the fuck? Traders found other ways around the system, and the important trading routes because empty and quiet. Oh, because it's I get it now. Because the trading routes are empty and quiet. Sometimes when I say stuff, it doesn't make sense to me until I have to say it a couple more times and then understand why is this saying it like this? Because I'm thinking in my head, this doesn't sound right, but no, it does sound right. I'm just freaking idiot. Let's see. Oh, night, Olivia. Hope you have a good sleep. What did I miss in chat? I've fallen asleep to reading. Oh, that's so sweet. I didn't realize they helped her fall asleep. Aw. Let's see. We're always smart, just occasionally overridden. Autumn said, I did lots of work on Suno stuff, and I'm trying to figure out just chatting screen for you. Oh, I had an idea for something. Because I love Metro, I was thinking of like a little screen where it's Kiko sitting by a campfire. But like obviously like, later on I want to update that idea with it being like she's in a Metro system. Kind of like that. But obviously now like if you would do it, I just asked for a screen with Kiko by a campfire. But it's okay. Uh just impressed of how in synced it was. Oh yeah. I was really impressed with how in sync everybody was with the fucking lymph node. I wonder why they called it that. Anyway. The politicians who were supported by fewer and fewer soldiers had to urgently find a way to end the war before the guns turned against them. So, under the strictest of secret conditions and at necessarily neutral station, the leaders from enemy sides met, and the Hansa president Loganov and the head of Arbet Confederation, Kolpkov, they quickly signed a peace agreement. The parties exchanged stations. The Red Line received dilapidated Revolutionary Square, but conceded the Lenin Library to the Arabat Confederation. It wasn't an easy step for either to make. The Confederation lost one of its parts along with its influence over the Northwest. The Red Line became punctuated since there was now a station in the middle of it that didn't belong to it and cut it in half, despite the fact that both parties guaranteed each other the right to free transit. Though their former territories, that sort of situation couldn't help but upset the Reds. But what the coalition was proposing was too tempting. The Red Line didn't resist, and Hansa gained more than an advantage from the agreement. Of course, but they could now close the ring, removing the final obstacle to their prosperity. They agreed to observe the status quo, an interdiction about conducting propaganda, and subvert. Fuck me. Ha! Subversive activities in the territory of their former opponent. Everyone was satisfied, and now. Hold on, next page. And now, when cannons and politicians had gone silent, it was the turn of the propagandists to explain to the masses that their own side had managed an outstanding diplomatic feat and, in essence, had won the war. Years have passed since the memorial day when the peace agreement was signed. It was observed by both parties too. The Hansa found in Redline a favorable economic partner, and the latter left behind its aggressive intentions. Comrade Moskvin. That bitch! I know that bitch! Comrade Moskvin, the Secretary General of the Communist Party of the Moscow Underground, in the name of V.I. Lenin, delicately proved the possibility of constructing communism in one separate metro line. The old enmity was forgotten. Okay, I recognize that name. Comrade Moskvin? That is one of the names of one of the antagonists of Metro Last Light. Oh, I saw that name. I'm like, oh, that bitch, I know you. I know you. But anyway. Artyom remembered this lesson in recent history well, just as he has strived to remember everything his stepfather told him. It's good that the slaughter came to an end, Pyotr Ilovich said. It was impossible to go anywhere near the ring for a year and a half. There was cordons everywhere, and they would check your documents 100 times. I had dealings there at the time, and there was no way to get through apart from past the Hansa. Fuck me. And they stopped me right at Prospect Mir. They almost put me up against a wall. And you never told us about this, Pyotr. How did it work out? Andrei was interested. Artyom slouched slightly, seeing that the storyteller's flashlight had been passed from his hands, but this promised to be an interest, so he didn't bother to butt in. First time, huh? Yes, sorry. I didn't realize your message. I'm also reading, so like I don't, you know, look at chat very often. But when I do, I try to. So apologies in advance if I missed. But yeah, first time reading the book. I was already drinking! You motherfucker! You're doing amazing. Thank you. I feel like I'm fucking up. Genuinely, I feel like I'm butchering this book. Like I'm saying the words, but they're not clicking in my head. Especially like some parts because it's like it's explaining the lore, right? And it's making me sit there and go, this feels too early for this. I'm sitting there like, I want the action. Come on, get me in, get me in. But I understand I need to learn about the past to figure out what the fuck is going on, you know? But yeah, I'm really sorry, Red Super. I hope you aren't offended with me ignoring you. I'm genuinely not trying to. They're probably gone, aren't they? That's fine. It's fine. Alright. Where was I? Uh, duh, duh, duh. Promised to be interested, so he didn't bother to butt in. Well, it was very simple. They took me for a red spy, so I'm coming out of the tunnel at Prospect Mar on our line. Prospect is also under the Hansa. It's an annex, so to speak. Well, things aren't so strict there yet. You've got a market there, a trading zone, as you know. It's the same everywhere with Hansa. The station on the ring itself forms something like their home territory, and transfer passages from the ring stations are like radials. They put some customs and passport controls there. Come on, we all know that what you're lecturing us for. Tell us instead what happened to you there. Andrei interrupted him. Passport controls, repeated Pyotr Andreyevich, sternly drawing his eyebrows together, determined to make a point. At the radial stations, they have markets, bazaars. Foreigners are allowed to are allowed there, but you can't cross the border. No way. I got out at Prospect Mer. I had half a kilo of tea with me. I need some ammunition for my rifle. I thought I'd make a trade. Well, turns out they're under martial law. They won't let go of any military supplies. I ask one person, then another. They all make excuses and sidle away from me. Only one whispered to me, "What ammunition's moron? What ammunition, you moron? Get the hell out of here and quick." Uh, they probably already informed you. I thanked him and headed quietly back into the tunnel. And right at the exit, a patrol stops me, and whistles ring out from the station, and still another detachment is running towards us. They ask for my documents. I give them my passport, and with a station stamp, they look at it carefully and ask, "Where's your pass?" I answered surprised, "What pass?" It turns out that to get to the station, you're obliged to get a pass near the tunnel's exit. Pardon me. You're not at all. You're reading so clearly, you're even changing your voice. If someone's yelling or talking loudly, you're doing perfectly. Thank you. I appreciate it. Da, 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 da. What pass? It turns out to get to the station, you're obliged to get a pass near the tunnel's exit. There's a little table, and they have an office there. They check the identification and issue a pass when necessary. They're up to their ears in bureaucracy, the rats. How I made it past the table, I don't know. Why didn't the blockhead stop me? And now I'm the one who had to explain myself to the patrol? So this musclehead stands there with his shaved skull and his camouflage and says, "You slipped past. You snuck it past. You crept past." He flips through my passport and sees Sokol stamped there. I lived there earlier at Sokol. He says this stamp and his eyes, he sees the stamp and his eyes all but filled with blood like a bull seeing red. He jerked his gun from his shoulder and roars, "Hands above your head, you scum!" His level of training was immediately apparent. He grabs me by the scruff of my neck and drags me across the entire station to the pass point. Oh, station. To the pass point in the transfer page to a superior. And he says threateningly, "Just you wait. All I need is to get permission from command, and you'll be a against the wall spy." I was about to be sick, so I tried to justify myself. What kind of spy am I? I'm a businessman. I brought some tea from VDNKH, and he replies that he'll stuff my mouth full of tea and ram it in with the barrel of his gun. I can see that I'm not very convincing, and that if his brass gives their approval, he'll lead me off to the 200th meter, put my face to the pipes, and shoot me full of holes. In accordance with the laws of war, things weren't turning out too well. I thought we approached the pass point, and head of mine, and this muscle head of mine went to discuss the best place to shoot me. I looked at his boss, and fuck me, and it was as if a burden fell on my shoulders. It was Paska Fetov, my former classmate. We remained friends even after school, and then we'd lost track of each other. Well, fuck, you scared the hell out of me. I already thought you were done for, that you'd been killed, asserted Andre's fuck me, Andres venomously, and all the men who were gathered tightly around the campfire at the 415th meter burst into friendly laughter. Even Pyotr Adovich himself, first glancing angrily at Andrei, couldn't restrain himself and smiled. Laughter sounded along the tunnels, giving birth somewhere in its depths to a distorted echo, a sinister screech that sounded unlike anything, and everyone gradually fell silent upon hearing it. Ooh, ooh, that's terrifying. They were having a good time, and it woke something from the tunnels. Oh, that's terrifying. I need to have another drink because I feel yucky in my nose. Okay. From the depths of the tunnel from the north, the suspicious sound were rather distinct now. There were rustling and a light rhythmic steps. Andre, of course, was the first to hear them. He went silent instantly and waved his hand to signal the others to be quiet too. He picked up his machine gun from the ground and jumped up from where he was sitting, slowly undoing his safety latch and loading a cartridge his back to the wall. He silently moved from the fireside into the tunnel. Artyom got up too. He was curious to see who he had missed the last time, but Andre turned back and frowned at him angrily. He stopped at the border of the darkness, pointed his gun to his shoulder, and laid down flat, shouting, "Give me some light!" Oh, sorry. "Give me some light!" One of the guys holding a powerful immaculator flashlight, which had been assembled from old car headlights, turned it on, and the bright beam ripped through the darkness. Snatched from the darkness, a fuzzy silhouette appeared on the floor for a second. It was something small, something not really scary looking, something which rushed back to the north. Artyom couldn't restrain himself and cried out, "Shoot! It's getting away!" But for some reason, Andre did not shoot. Pyotr Adovich got up too, keeping his machine gun at the ready, and shouted, "Andreyuk, you still alive?" The guy sitting at the fire whispered in agitation, hearing the lock of Andre's gun slide back. Finally, Andre appeared in the light of the flashlight, dusting off his jacket. "Yes, I'm alive," he said laughingly. "Why are you snorting?" Pyotr Ivanovich asked him suspiciously. "It had 3 feet, 2 heads, mutant. The Dark Ones are here. They'll cut our throats, shoot, or they'll get away. Must have been a lot of them, must have." Andre continued to laugh. "Why don't you shoot? Why didn't you shoot?" "Fine, my young man. Might have, but he's young. Didn't get it. But why did you mess it up? You're not new to this at all. After all, fuck me." "You know what happened at Polvarskaya?" asked Pyotr Ivanovich angrily when Andrei had returned to the fire. "Yes, I heard about Polvarskaya a dozen times." Andrei waved him away. "It was a dog, a puppy, not even a dog. It's already the second time it's tried to get close to the fire, towards the heat and the light, and you almost took him out. Now you're asking me why I'm too considerate? Knackers." How was I supposed to know it was a dog? Artyom had taken offense. "It gave out such sounds, and then a week ago, there were talks about seeing a rat the size of a pig." "You believed in fairy tales. Wait a second, and I'll bring you your rat," Andre said, throwing his machine gun over his shoulder and walking off into the darkness. A minute later, they heard a fine whistle from the darkness. Then a voice called out, affectionately, coaxingly, "Come here! Come here, little one! Don't be afraid!" Oh, fuck, he's dead. He's gonna fucking die, I can tell. He spent a long time convincing it, about 10 minutes calling it and whistling to it. Then finally, his figure appeared again in the twilight. Oh, he's not dead. He returned to the fire and smiled triumphantly as he opened his jacket. Oh! A puppy fell out onto the ground, shivering, piteous and wet, intolerably dirty, with matted fur of its indistinct color, and black eyes full of horror and flattened ears. Once on the ground, he immediately tried to get away, but Andre's firm hand grabbed it and held it in place, petting it on its head. He removed his jacket and covered the little dog. "The puppy needs to be warmed," he explained. "Come on, Andre, it's a flea bag." Pyotr Ivanovich tried to bring Andre to his senses, and he might even have worms. "And generally, you might pick up an infection and spread it through the station." "Okay, Pyotr, that's enough. Stop whining. Just look at it." And he pulled back the flaps of his jacket, showing Pyotr the muzzle of the puppy. that it was still shivering, either out of fear or cold. Look at its eyes. Those eyes can never lie. Pyotr Ilovitch looked at the puppy skeptically. They were frightened eyes, but undoubtedly honest. Pyotr Ilovitch thawed a bit. All right, you nature lover. Wait, I'll find something for him to chew on, he muttered, and started to look into his rucksack. Have a look. Have a look. You'll never know. Maybe something useful will grow from it. A German Shepherd, for example, Andre said and moved the jacket containing the puppy closer to the fire. But where could a puppy come from to get here? There aren't any people in that direction, only dark ones. Do the dark ones keep dogs? One of Andre's men, a thin man with tousled hair, who wouldn't have said anything until now, asked as he looked suspiciously at the puppy, who had dozed off in the heat. You're right, of course, Cairo, Andre answers seriously. The Dark Ones don't keep pets as far as I know. Well, how do they live then? Do they eat anyway? Asked another man, scratching his unshaven jaw with a light electric crackling sound. He was tall, obviously battle hardened, broad shouldered, and thick set, with a completely shaven head. He was dressed in a long, well sewn leather cloak, which in this day and age was a rarity. Why do they eat? They all say they eat all kinds of junk. They eat the carrion, the rat eat they eat the rats. They eat humans. They're not picky eaters. You know, answered Andre, contorting his face in disgust. Cannibals? Asked the man with the shaved head, without a shadow of surprise, and it sounded as though he had come across cannibals before. Cannibals? They're not even human. They're undead. Who knows what the hell they are? It's good they don't have weapons, so they aren't able to fend them off. For the time being, Pyotr, remember 6 months ago we managed to take one of them captive? I remember, spoke Pyotr Ardovich. He sat in our lockup for 2 weeks, wouldn't drink our water, didn't touch our food, and then croaked. You didn't interrogate him? Asked the man. He didn't understand a words we said in our language. They speak plain Russian to him, and he kept quiet. He kept quiet the entire time, like his mouth was full of water. They beat him too, and he said nothing. And they gave him something to eat, and he said nothing. He'd just growl every once in a while. He'd howl so loudly just before he died that the station woke up. So how'd the dog get here anyway? Crow reminded them. Who the hell knows how it got here? Maybe it ran away from them. Maybe they wanted to eat it. It's about 2 kilometers here. Couldn't a dog have run from here from there? Maybe it belongs to someone. Maybe someone was coming from the north and fell on the dark ones, and the little dog managed to get away. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she got here. How she got here. Look at her yourself. Does she look like a monster? Like a mutant? No. She's a little puppy dog. Nothing special. She's drawn to people. That means she's used to us. Otherwise, why would she have tried 3 times to get close to the fire? Crow went silent, thinking through the argument. Pyotr Ardovich filled up the kettle with water from the canister and asked, anyone want more tea? Let's have a final cup. Soon it'll be time for us to be relieved. Tea? Now you're talking. Let's have some, Andre said. The others became animated at the idea as well. Oh, they're tea drinkers. They love the tea. Honestly, I'm curious what the tea would taste like, because they mentioned it's just mushrooms with something else, which honestly makes sense given that, like, they can't really grow much in the metro system. Ugh. I think I've seen, like, in the Metro games, they're able to grow, like, the things they have chicken, rats, pigs, mushrooms. I haven't seen, like, much in the way of growing stuff. Maybe they could eat the radiation shrimp. There's, like, some big giant crab crustacean like enemies there, so maybe they could also eat that. I don't know. I am more curious what the tea would taste like. It's probably something kind of not amazing, but it'll definitely do. But yeah, um, let's see. Let's have some, Andre said. The others became animated by the idea as well. The kettle came to a boil. Pyotr Arovitz poured another cup for those who wanted it and made a request. You guys, there's no point in talking about the Dark Ones. The last time we were sitting up like this and talking about them, they crawled up. Other guys have told me that the very same thing happened to them. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I'm not superstitious, but what if it's not? What if they can sense it? Our shift's almost over already. What do we need these shenanigans for at this minute? Last minute. Yeah, actually, it's probably not worth it, and second Artyom. Okay, that's enough, man. Don't chicken out on us. We'll get there in the end, said Andre, trying to cheer up Artyom, but not really succeeding in convincing him. 6-7, hi ballistic. How you doing? Let's see. To convince him, the mere thought of the Dark Ones sent an unpleasant shiver through everyone, including Andre. Although he tried to hide it, he didn't fear humans of any kind. Not bandits, not cutthroats, and what? Arcanists. Jesus. Not soldiers of the Red Army, but the undead disgusted him. And it wasn't that he was afraid of them, but that he didn't stay calm when he thought about them, or indeed any other danger. Everyone fell quiet. A heavy, oppressive silence came over the men grouped around the fire. The knobbly logs on the fire were crackling, and to the north, a muted, deep-chested croaking sound in the tunnel could be heard from time to time in the distance, as if the Moscow metro were the giant intestines of some unknown monster, and these sounds were really terrifying. We did it! I'm doing alright. How are you? I'm pretty good. We've just finished chapter 1. Holy! It's only taken us about an hour or two. Fucking A. I didn't think we'd get that far. I thought I'd be in pain and would be like, nope, I don't want to read anymore. Nope, I genuinely enjoyed this. I think this is quite fun. I need another drink though. Okay. Kinda. It's like, oh, you bitch. I knew I should have fucking. I knew. I knew I should have removed that. I thought to myself, no one's gonna do that. They want a chill stream because it's a chill fucking book read, like, me reading and shit. They want to hear my voice. Nah, this dick over here, motherfucker. Alright. I gotta quickly go and sort dogs out, so have a break because I don't know when the ads are gonna show. And I can't force them to show, otherwise you'll have to listen to them twice. So we're gonna do that real quick. And yeah, I'll be right back. Oh, I can? Alright, bet. Don't worry about the squats. Thanks, man. It'll reset everything in an hour. Okay, bet. Let me do that real quick. Alright. There we go. Wait. Okay. I think that'll do. Alright. I think I said it right, but if it doesn't, too bad. I'll talk to you guys. Oh. I fucked it up. How do you fucking fix that? It's fine. I mean, I don't know how to really set these. Go do what you need to do. I bet. I'll be back soon. I'm back. I didn't realize that you guys now had more ads to deal with. I really need to learn how that fucking works. Because I got no fucking clue. But also, welcome back, Leechy. You didn't miss much other than Andre went out into the dark and acquired a puppy. I know, I can't. It's the same thing that I did last stream. It's I need to get used to figuring out like how that shit works. Anyway, yeah. So essentially, uh, the creature that Artyom had heard at the very start that sounded like something that wasn't human, that ran off, was a puppy that Andre found and brought back and was like, "Hey, this is just a puppy. Let's just try and take care of it and shit." And everyone was kind of against it originally, but now everyone's like, "Yeah, we like it." Okay, we're on to chapter 1, or sorry, chapter 2, The Hunter. We're probably not going to finish entirely this episode because we've only got an hour left till Autumn stream, and then we're going to go right into her. So we'll do as much as we can, and then we will call it there. And I will then again put up a poll in my chat, my Discord, to see if people enjoyed that or this. And if so, then we can continue doing this again. Thank you for the hydrate. I appreciate it. I did get myself some more water and some noodles. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 2, The Hunter. Once again, all sorts of nonsense started filling Artyom's head. The Dark Ones, he'd come across those damn non-humans only once during his watch, and he'd been scared silly. But how could he not have been so? So, you're sitting there on watch, you're warming yourself by the fire, and suddenly you hear it from the tunnel. From somewhere in the depths, a regular dull knocking rips out, first in the distance, quietly, and then ever closer and ever louder. And then suddenly your ears are struck by a horrible graveyard howl, and it's coming closer. And then a complete mayhem. Everyone jumps up, the heap of sandbags and crates on which they've been sitting on into a barrier quickly, so they sitting into a barrier quickly so that they'd be something to hide behind. And the most senior among them shouts with all his might at the top of his lungs, "Alert!" Reserves rush in from the station to give support, and at 300 meter where the main blow will have to be absorbed, they pull the cover from the machine gun, and the people throw themselves to the ground behind the sandbags, directing their gunfire at the mouths of the tunnel, taking aim. Finally, having waited for the Dark Ones to draw closer, they turn on the spotlight, and the strange, delirious silhouettes become visible in its beam. They're naked, covered in black, glossy skin, with huge eyes and mouths like gashes. They're striding rhythmically ahead towards the fortifications, towards death, with reckless abandon, without wavering, closer and closer. There are 3, 5, 8 beasts, and the first among them suddenly throws back its head and emits a howl like a requiem. You feel a shiver along your skin. You resist the urge to jump up and run, to toss your gun aside, to abandon your comrades, to throw everything to the devil and run. The spotlight is aimed straight into the muzzles of those nightmarish creatures to strike their pupils with its bright light. But it's obvious they're not even squinting. They're not even throwing up their hands. They're not even looking into the spotlight with their eyes wide open and continuing to move steadily onward. Onward. Do they even have pupils? And now finally, the guys run up from the 300th meter with more machine guns and lie down alongside the comrades fly overhead. Commands fly overhead. Everything's ready. The long awaited fire thunders. At once, several guns begin to rattle, and a big machine gun rumbles. But the Dark Ones don't stop. They don't crouch. They stride ahead, fully erect, without slowing their pace, just as steadily and calmly as before. In the light of the spotlight, you can see how the bullets tear at their glossy bodies, how they're being pushed back. Sorry, I said that backwards, how they fall, but they get right back up again, rise to their full height, and march on, and again, hoarsely now, because its throat has already been pierced. A sinister howl rings out. Several minutes more will pass as the steel tempest finally breaks its inhuman, unthinking obscenity. And then, when all of the ghouls have tumbled breathlessly and motionless, the guys will finish them off with shots to the head from 5 meters, just to be sure. And even when everything's over, when the corpses have been tossed into the shaft, the same sinister image will continue to hover before your eyes. For a long time to come, bullets plunging into those black bodies, the spotlight scalding those wide eyes, but they keep on marching as steadily as ever onward. Artyom convulsed at the thought. Yes, of course, it's better not to chat about them, he thought, just in case. Hey, Andrich, get ready. We're on our way, they shouted from the. Oh, sorry, let me do that again. Hey, Andrich, get ready. We're on our way, they shouted from the south from the darkness. Your shift's over. The men at the began to move about, throwing off their stupor, rising to their feet, stretching, putting on their backpacks and weapons. Andrei picked up the little puppy. Pyotr Arovich and Artyom were returning to the station, while Andrei and his men were returning to the 300th meters since their shift there hadn't quite ended. Their replacements walked up and exchanged handshakes, ascertained whether or not anything strange or peculiar had happened, wished each other the relaxation they deserved, and sat down a bit closer to the fire, continuing a conversation they began earlier, when everyone was already headed south along the tunnel. Towards the station, Pyotr Arovich again speaking heatedly with Aunt Andre about something, apparently returning to one of their eternal disputes, and the husky guy with the shaved head who had questioned them concerning the Dark Ones' eating habits fell away from them, drawing even with Artyom and beginning to walk in step with him. So then, you know Sukai? He asked Artyom in a low, muffled voice, without looking him in the eye. Uncle Sasha? Well, yes, he's my stepfather. I lived with him, answered Artyom honestly. You don't say. Your stepfather? You never had such a... was had such... I've never heard of such, muttered the man. What's your name? Artyom decided to ask, having reasoned that if someone questioned you about your own relative, then that gives you the right to ask a question in return. My name? Asked the man, surprised. Why do you need to know? Well, I'll tell you, I'll tell Uncle Sasha Sako that you're asking about him. Tell him that Hunter was asking. Hunter, sorry. Tell him that Hunter was asking. Hunter. Tell him I said hello. Hunter? That's an odd name. What is it? Your last name? Your nickname? Artyom asked. Last name? Hunter smirked. What of it? It's totally. No. Son, it's not a last name. How should I put it? I put. How should I put it? A profession. And what's yours? Artyom. Fine then. Nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll see each other again, and fairly soon. Did that. Cheers. Giving Artyom a wink before parting, he remained behind at the 300th meter along with Andre. There there wasn't much further to go on. Fuck me. Fuck you. Fine. I really should have fucking disabled that. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. There you go. Thank you, Lishi. I appreciate it. Ooh. Okay. No, the page is turned automatically. Okay. Da, 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 da. A wink before parting. He reminded him of the 300-meter along with Andre. There wasn't much further to go. From a distance, the lively noise of the station could already be heard. Pyotr Arnovich, walking alongside Artyom, asked him worriedly, "Listen, Artyom, who was that anyway? What was he saying to you back there?" "He was a strange sort of guy. He asked about Uncle Sasha. An acquaintance of his, I guess. Do you know him?" "Don't seem to. It just comes to our station for a couple of days on some sort of business. Looks like Andre has already met him. He was one of who insisted on being on the same watch with him. Who the hell knows why he found that so necessary? His face is somehow familiar." Do squats, then sat down and read more. Did squats, then sat down and read more. Yep. Hold on, what's going on? You didn't do B squats, you owe another 5. B said to not do them. Look at him ignoring me. Gosh, don't even check before reading chat. Imagine ignoring your Oshi. You're mental. Did squats and sat down and read more. Oh, they checked. Test. I did say it was fine to get it, didn't. Shh. Alright. Fine. Fine. I'll do it. I'll do another one. Alright? Just for you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Easy clap. Anyway. I redeem a good girl if I could. Alright, hang on. Let me add... Actually, no. I will not add them. I will hold back because I am reading and we're having a chill time. Fuck y'all. What the fuck? No! What? I appreciate the bits, but what the fuck? Setting the accounting to 5 like I used to do back when a customer asked to look for something we didn't have. Oh, nice. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's probably hard to forget an appearance like that, said Artyom. Exactly. Where was it that I saw him? What's his name? Do you know? Inquired Pyotr Arovich. Hunter. That's what he said. Hunter. Just try to figure out what that's supposed to be. Hunter, not a Russian name, frowned Pyotr Arovich. In the distance, a red glow had already appeared. The VDNKH, like the majority of stations, didn't have normal lighting. And for 30 years now, people have lived under scarlet emergency lights. Only occasionally were they normal electricity light bulbs in their apartments, their tents and rooms, and only a few of the wealthiest metro stations were illuminated by the light of genuine mercury lamps. Legends had formed around them, and provisional types from distant god-forsaken substations would nourish the dream for years and years on end of making it there and beholding this miracle. I'll be honest, I don't get the joke of standing there counting to 5 like I used to, and back when a customer asked to look for something we didn't have. I don't get it. Is it a joke or is it something that actually happened? Uh, duh, 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 duh. At the tunnel exit, they handed over their weapons to the other guards and signed their names on the ledger. Pyotr Andrich shook Artyom's hand before parting and said, "It's about time we hit the sack. I can barely stand on my feet, and you're probably ready to sleep standing up yourself. Give Shoko my warmest regards. You should pay me a visit." Artyom said goodbye and had a feeling the sudden onset of fatigue took himself off his to his apartment. 200 people lived in the VD in KH, some in the service quarters, but the majority in tents on the platform. The tents were army issue, now old, tattered, but still intact. Means you're standing there instead of doing the squat. Oh no, no, I'm not standing there. I am actually doing the squats. I would never ever lie. If I had a webcam or something to prove to you guys that, but I would. But I don't want to show my face, so yeah, we're good for that. Anyway, 200 people lived in VDNKH, some in service quarters, but the majority are in tents on the platform. The tents were army issue, now old, tattered, but still intact. They didn't have to contend with the wind or the rain underground, and they were well maintained, so it's easily possible to live in them. They didn't lose heat or light, and and they even kept out the noise. What more could one ask for of one housing? The tents were tucked up against the wall on either side, both along the tracks and in the central hall. The platform had turned into something resembling a street. There was a fairly wide passage along its middle. Some of the tents were large, housing the more numerous families, and they occupied the space beneath the archways, but several arches remained free for passage. At each end of the hall, uh, and in its center, there were other accommodations below the platform as well, but the ceiling there wasn't very high, and they weren't very subtle for habitation. They used them at VDNKH for storage provisions. Glad to see I wasn't the only one with that thought. Uh, nah. Dude, I'm so excited for like when I move out. That's gonna be so fun. Let's see. The two northern tunnels were joined by a side tunnel, several tens of meters beyond the station, which once upon a time allowed trains to turn around and head back to the other direction. Now, one of the two tunnels was plugged up, the other led to the north towards the botanical garden and almost to Mistiki. They left it as a retreat route in the case of extreme circumstances. It was there that Artyom had been on watch. The remaining segment of the second tunnel and the unified stretch between the two tunnels was designated for mushroom plantations. The rails had been there. Uh, the rails there had been, yep, dismantled, and the ground had been tilled and fertilized. They hauled waste products there from the cesspit. Tidy rows of mushroom caps shone white along the tunnel. One of the two southern tunnels had been collapsed as well at the 300th meter, and they used that area for chicken coops and pig pens. Artyom's home stood on the main thoroughfare, He lived there in one of the smaller tents together with his stepfather. His stepfather was an important man associated with the administration. He maintained contact with the other stations, so the powers that be reserved the tent for him. It was granted to him as his own personal tent. It was at first rate one that his stepfather had frequently disappeared for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and never took Artyom with him, excusing himself by saying that he was occupied with matters too dangerous and didn't want to subject Artyom to any risk. He returned from his trips thinner, his hair unkempt, sometimes wounded. But the first evening of his return, he would always sit with Artyom, telling him things that were hard to believe even for a resident of this grotesque little world, and one who is used to unbelievable stories. What the fuck? Ballistic? I appreciate the bits, but what the fuck? I'm only reading. Why you do this? Yeah, bitch. This motherfucker. Let's see. Artyom felt the urge to travel himself, but to wander around in the metro for no good reason was too dangerous. The patrol guards at independent stations were very suspicious and wouldn't let a person pass with a weapon, and heading off into the tunnels without a weapon meant certain death. And so, ever since he and his grandfather had come to Sevoyoloska, Artyom hadn't had the chance to take part in any decent excursions. He'd sometimes be sent to the Alvaskaya on business, but he didn't go alone, of course. They went in a group, sometimes as far as Rizskaya, but on top of that, he had one more trip under his belt about which he couldn't tell anyone, although he desperately wanted to. It happened a long, long time ago, when there wasn't even a slightest hint of Dark Ones at the Botanical Garden, when it was simply an abandoned and dark station, and the patrols of VDNKH were stationed much further to the north. At the time, Artyom himself, still just a kid back then, he and his buddies decided to take a risk. During a shift change, they stole past the outer cordon with flashlights and double-barreled rifles stolen from someone's parents and crawled for a long time around the botanical garden station. It was eerie, but it was interesting in the light of the flashlights. You could see the remnants of human habitation everywhere: ash, singed books, broken toys, torn clothing. Rats darted about, and from time to time, strange rumbling sounds would ring out from the northern tunnel. One of Artyom's friends, he didn't even remember who it was anymore, but it was probably Xenia, uh, the most lively and most cautious of the three, said, "What if we try to take down the barrel and go up to the surface in the escalator? Try to see what it's like up there, or what it's like there, to see what's there." Artyom had said right away he was against it. The recent tales his stepfather told him about people who had spent time on the surface were fresh in his mind, about how afterwards they had long been sick, and about the sorts of horrors sometimes seen up there. But they immediately began to argue that this was a rare opportunity. When else would they manage to make it with no adults to expand station as they had now? And they had the chance to go up to the surface too and see with their own eyes what it's like to have nothing above your head. And resigning all hope of convincing him nicely, they declared that if he was such a coward, then he could sit down below and wait for them to come back. The thought of staying alone in an abandoned station, and on top of that, besmirching his reputation in the eyes of his two best friends, was completely unbearable to Artyom. So, summoning his courage, he consented. To everyone's surprise, the mechanism that brought the barrier dividing the platform from the escalator into motion actually worked, and it was Artyom himself who managed to start it up. After half an hour of desperate attempts, the rusty iron walls moved aside with a nasty grating sound, and before their eyes stood the short row of steps to the escalator leading upwards. Some of the steps had collapsed, and though the yawning gaps in the light of the flashlights, one could see colossal gears that had stopped years ago, corroded with rust, grown over with something brownish that was moving, just barely noticeable. It wasn't easy for them to force themselves to go up there. Several times the steps had they had stepped on. What's the time? 10:38. We're still good. Oh, gave way with a screech and dropped below. They climbed across the chasm, clinging to old holes of the metro lamps. The path to the surface wasn't long, but their initial determination was evaporating after that first collapsed step. And in order to raise their spirits, they imagined themselves to be real stalkers. Stalkers. The word sound strange and foreign to the Russian language had caught on very well nonetheless. Earlier, this was the name given to people whose uh, poverty compelled them to make their way to abandoned military firing range to take apart unexploded missiles and bombs and redeem brass casings with those who bought non-ferrous materials. It was also given to those strange people who, in time of peace, climbed around in the sewer, but all these meanings had something in common. It was always an extremely dangerous profession, always a confrontation with the unknown, the mysterious, the ominous. Who knows what happened to those abandoned ranges, where the radioactive earth disfigured by thousands of explosions, plowed with trenches and pitted with catacombs, put forth monsters, monstrous sprouts. Thank you for the hijack. Okay. Also have a little bit of some noodles. Brilliant. All right. 20 minutes left. Oh. Okie dokie. Ba, 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 ba. I mean, monsters. No, where is it? Ah, and one could only guess at what might dwell in the sewers of the teeming metropolis once the builders had closed the hatches behind them, leaving those gloomy, narrow, reeking corridors forever. In the metro, the rare daredevils who had the guts to venture to the surface were called stalkers. In protective suits and gas masks with tinted glass, they were heavily armed as they ascended to the surface in search of items that were necessities for everyone: military supplies, equipment, replacement parts, fuel. There were hundreds of men who dared to do this. Those who were able to make it back alive could be counted on one's fingers. Counted on one's fingers. There we go. And these men were worth their weight in gold. They were valued even more highly than the former Metro employees. All kinds of dangers awaited those who dared to go up above from the radiation to the ghoulish creatures that it had created. There was life there too on the surface, but it was no longer life according to the customary human conception of it. Every stalker became a living legend, a demigod, whom everyone, young and old, regarded with ripped amazement. In a world in which there was nowhere left to sail or fly, the words pilot and sailor were becoming dull and losing their meaning. Children dreamed of becoming stalkers, to strike out, clothed in shining armor, accompanied by hundreds of gazes of adoration and gratitude, climbing to the surface, to the realm of the gods, to do battle with monsters, and returning underground to bring people, fuel, military supplies, light, and fire to bring life. Artyom, his friends Xenia and Vit Vitalik and the Splinter all wanted to become stalkers and compelled themselves to climb upwards along the horrifying, screeching escalator with its collapsing steps. They imagined themselves in protective suits with radiation damage monitors with hulking machine guns at the ready, just as one would expect of real stalkers. But they had neither radiation monitors nor protection, and instead of imposing army issued machine guns, they had only the ancient double barrel rifle, which perhaps didn't even shoot at all. Before their ascent was complete, they found themselves almost on the surface. Fortunately, it was night. Otherwise, they would have been blinded, eyes accustomed to the darkness, to the crimson light of bonfires and emergency lamps in their many years of life underground, wouldn't have withstand the glare. Blind and helpless, they would have been unlikely to make it back home again. Yeah, because, like, I remember growing up as a kid, you'd hear stories of, like, people getting trapped in mines, and if they, you know, were out there, trapped underground, you'd physically have to wait till it was nighttime in order to actually, like, do something, or not do something, but see, because something about adjusting your vision to the darkness and suddenly seeing like a bright light hurts your eyes. So it's kind of good that they went up at nighttime, because if they did, they probably would be absolutely fucking destroyed. Let's see. Blinded, helpless, and unlikely to make it back. The vestibule of the botanical garden station was almost destroyed. Half of the roof had collapsed, and through it one could see the radioactive dust of the dark blue summer sky, already cleansed of the clouds and strewn with myriad stars. But what was a starry sky for a child who wasn't even capable of imagining what a ceiling might not be above his head? When you let your gaze and it doesn't run up against concrete covering and rotten networks of wires and pipes, but it's lost instead in a dark blue abyss, gaping suddenly above your head. What an impression! And the stars. Could anyone who had never seen the stars possibly imagine what infinity is like? When most likely, the very concept of infinity first appeared among humans, inspired once upon a time by a nocturnal vault of the heavens. Millions of the shining lights, silver nails driven to a dome of dark blue velvet. The boy stood there, 3, 5, then 10 minutes, unable to utter a word. They wouldn't even have moved, and by morning would have certainly have been cooked alive, if they hadn't heard a blood-curdling howl ring out nearby. Coming to their senses, they rushed headlong back to the escalator and raced down it as fast as their legs could have carried them. Having thrown all caution to the wind, and several times nearly plunging down towards into the teeth of the gears, supporting each other, supporting each other and pulling each other out, they made the journey back in the matter of seconds, spinning down the final 10 steps of a top, having lost double-barreled rifle along the way. Oh, sorry, lost the double-barrel rifle along the way. And they immediately lunged for. Hold on, next page. Tiki. Lunged for the control panel of the barrier. But damn it, the rusted old iron had become wedged, and it didn't want to return to its place. Scared half to death that the monsters would pursue them from the surface, they raced off homewards to the northern cordon, but remembering that they'd probably done something very bad. Having left the hermit's gate open, and had probably left the path downwards into the metro and the people open for the mutants, they found the time to agree to keep their lips sealed and not to tell anyone, any of the adults, where they'd been. At the cordon, they said they'd gone to the side tunnel to hunt for rats, but lost their gun, become frightened, and returned. Artyom, of course, caught hell from his stepfather. His rear end smarted for a long time from that officer's belt. Ugh! Ow! But Artyom held up like a captive partisan and didn't blurt out his military secrets, and his comrade kept silent as well. Everyone believed them, but now, when he thought of their escapade, Artyom fell more and more into reflection. Was this journey, and more importantly, the barrier they'd opened, connected somehow to the scum that had assaulted their cordons for the last several years? Greeting passerbys, greeting passerbys stopping now and then to hear some news, to shake hands with old friends, and land a kiss on the cheek of a familiar girl, to tell old generations about his stepfather's dealings. Artyom finally reached his home. Nobody was there, and he decided not to wait for his stepfather to go to bed. An 8-hour watch was enough to take anyone off their feet. He threw off his boots, took off his jacket, and planted his face in the pillow. Sleep didn't make him wait. The flaps of the tent were lifted with a massive figure slipped quietly inside, whose face couldn't be seen. The only thing visible was the ominous gleam of a smooth skull reflecting the red emergency sea. It is not here. Doesn't matter. We'll find. Oh, fuck me. I just jumped like a couple sentences. On the gleaming skull, reflecting the red emergency lights, a muffled voice was heard. We meet again. Your stepfather, I see, is not here. Doesn't matter. We'll find him soon. Sooner or later, he won't get away. For now, you'll come with me. We have something to talk about. For example, the barrier at the botanical gardens. Artyom froze, recognized the guy he had met at the cordon earlier, the man who had introduced himself as Hunter. The man came closer, silently, and as his face was still not visible, for some reason the light was failing in a strange way. Artyom wanted to call for help, but a powerful hand, as cold as death, collapsed around onto his mouth. At last, he managed to grab a hold of the lantern, turn it on, and light up the person's face. What he saw rendered him powerless for a moment and filled him with horror. What loomed in front of him was not a human face, but a terrible black muzzle with two huge, vacant, whiteless eyes and a gaping maw. Oh, I can't do the voice, but but that doesn't mean I can't. Uh, your dag off. Okay. I'm getting fizzle brained while I'm reading. Artyom darted and threw himself out of the tent. The lights suddenly went out and station became totally dark. There was only some weak reflected light from a small fire somewhere in the distance. Without pausing for a thought, Artyom rushed in that direction towards the light. The ghoul jumped towards him from behind, growling, "Stop! You have nowhere to run!" He roared with a terrifying laughter, which slowly became a familiar graveyard howl. Artyom ran off without turning to look, hearing the footfalls of heavy boots behind him. Unhurried, even as his pursuer knew that there was nowhere to run, that Artyom would be caught sooner or later. Uh, Artyom ran up to the fire and saw a figure sitting there with its back to him. He was going to tap the sitting person on the shoulders and ask for help, but the person suddenly fell backwards, and it was clear that he'd been dead for a long time, and his face was covered with hoar frost for some reason. And in the face of this frozen person, Artyom recognized Uncle Sasha, his stepfather. Hey, Artyom! That was a good sleep. Now get up. You've been snoozing for several hours now already. Get up, sleepyhead. We have guests coming. Suku's voice rang out. Artyom sat up in his bed and stared at him, stunned. Oh, Uncle Sasha, is everything okay with you? He asked at last, after a minute of blinking. It was hard for him to overcome the urge to ask him if he was alive or not, and that was only because the fact of was standing in front of him. Yes, as you can see. Come on, come on. Get up. There's no point in lying about. I want to introduce you to my friend, said Sukoi. There was a familiar but muffled voice nearby, and Artyom, covered in perception, remembers his recent nightmare. So, you've already met, Sukoi was surprised. Well, Artyom, you're sharp. Finally, the visitor squeezed into the tent. Artyom shuddered and pressed against the tent wall. It was Hunter. The nightmare came alive again. Dark, vacant eyes, the roar of heavy boots behind him, the stiff corpse sitting at the fire. Yes, we meet, Artyom. Managed to squeeze out. Yes, we've met. Artyom managed to squeeze out his reply and reluctantly extended a hand to the visitor. Ah, my voice is starting to hurt. And it is roughly about time to do autumn streams. So I think this is a good place to call it. I had a lot of fun. Genuinely, I like this. Water, you got it. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for showing up today. I'm sorry that I'm not a perfect reader, or I've missed a couple lines or anything. I'm still getting back into the sling of it. You did an amazing job. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um but yeah, reading is something I've always enjoyed. When I was a kid, I used to read Percy Jackson books. Uh but it kind of I lost my books, so I didn't know what happened to them, and I kind of lost the urge to read because my mom, back when I was a kid and had left school, she basically forced me to write down stuff from the Percy Jackson books to practice my writing, and I hated it. I hated it so much because it's like I don't want to read a book only to write down stuff that I've just read. So it kind of killed my vibe of reading. Luckily, she doesn't, make me do that anymore. I think she figured out that I did not like it, which is, it's fair. I did have one of the books. I need to see if I can find it. I don't know if I still have it, but I do remember reading some of it. Maybe one day I could read that. I remember reading let me think. Which one did I read? I read the final Percy Jackson book, as well as the Labyrinth. I think the Labyrinth was really interesting. They're so good. I love Percy Jackson books. Hell yeah. Honestly, Percy Jackson was my childhood. That was my shit. Oh, I thought I got messaged 4 times. Oh man. I genuinely I want to get better at reading or reading out to people because you guys said my voice is really good, and as Olivia said, I've made her fall asleep. So that's really nice and, kind. But let me quickly go turn the redeems on before I forget, because I don't want to forget for next stream. And yes, Kanem, that means you can put your Dag Off Air one on. There we go. Alright, they're on. Let's see this one. Oh, all right, there they go. All the redeems are turned on. Now, let's hope and pray that Autumn is started streaming soon. Otherwise, I can just keep yapping. People like hearing me yap, so it's fine. It's fine, you know? Imagine, yapping continuously. God, who would do that? Who would do that type of thing? Totally not me. No, no.
Kato, you're such a good girl.
Okay, I regret turning that shit on. Fuck you. It's really funny because I literally went to Autumn's channel to see if she's live yet, and then fucking heard it twice. So I got double flashbanged. Bastard. Brilliant. Alright. We got one more minute. Hopefully she'll be live soon. Which will be a lovely, lovely time. But yeah, I think she's gonna do some FF14 stuff. I was supposed to go do groceries today, but my mum didn't set them to be pick upable today. So that's probably gonna be tomorrow thing in the morning. Hopefully, Lishi, I'll make it in time before we do girls' night. Because I really love to do girls' night. That shit's fun. Girls' night, girls' night. We're gonna still gotta watch Ponyo. I have no idea what Ponyo is, but I want to see it. You know? Alright. We're gonna go right into Autumn now. She's live, so I will see you guys later. Yes, please, Ponyo. Hell yeah. Ponyo, Ponyo. Alright. I love you all. Thank you so, so much again for, sitting here and watching me play, stream, my reading. And yeah, I will talk to y'all later. Give her some love. Bye.